Welcome to the Keep Indiana Learning Dream Summit. We are thrilled to have Kit Malone with us today to share her dream for education. In her role as advocacy strategist at the ACLU of Indiana, Kit plans and implements advocacy strategies to defend civil liberties across a wide spectrum of issues. She also oversees the ACLU of Indiana's LGBTQ rights project and the Transgender Education and Advocacy Program. In 2019, she was inducted to the Indy Pride's Hall of Fame for this work, and in 2020 was named Community Leader of the Year by the Indy Rainbow Chamber of Commerce. In 2021, she won the Kennedy King Memorial Initiative's Trailblazer Award for civic engagement. A former high school teacher, Kit started her advocacy career as a community organizer for the Freedom Indiana campaign. While there, she helped organize local battles to successfully pass non-discrimination protections in over 12 municipalities.
Thanks for that introduction, Allie. It's always bizarre to hear your biography read out loud. Really happy. Good morning, everyone. Happy MLK Day. It's so like a bunch of teachers to be working on a day like today. As a former teacher, I'm really kind of tickled and thrilled to be here with you sharing my dream. It's been 6 or 7 years since I've stood in front of a chalkboard, but this event reminds me of how much I love teachers. It gives me life to be able to speak to folks who are committed to keeping Indiana learning. It's a weird time for educators, and every one of you deserves a medal for continuing to show up for children in the face of incredible world-shaking challenges. But of course, instead of a medal, lawmakers who haven't stood in front of a chalkboard since they were students themselves are pushing legislation to hyper-restrict the subjects you can teach about, the manner you can teach, and piling on more burdensome reporting requirements than you already have. I've said it before, and I'll say it here. Indiana is lucky that teachers here aren't literally rioting. It says a lot about your dedication to caring for children that you're still in it with us and that you still show up every day. These lawmakers say that classroom censorship is necessary because apparently learning about racism might make kids feel bad. I'm not making this up. I can't believe that I have to say this, but I hope that when my kids learn about racism for the first time, that it makes them feel bad. That'll be a sign that I've raised decent children. In 1981, when I was 6 years old, a news show I was watching with my mom ran old footage of the 1960s racial uprisings in Selma and Birmingham. My brain had no place to file these images of police doing violent things to clearly innocent and harmless people. I asked my mom what was happening and why, and she told me. She didn't mince words. Nothing in my young life had prepared me to think about racial violence, or the idea that the people in charge of keeping us safe might actually sometimes be guilty of committing very violent injustices. The realization rocked me. It was more than just a realization that injustice existed, although that was certainly enough for a 6-year-old to chew on. It was the shock that I didn't know about it, followed by the real realization, something that haunts me to this very day, that because of who I am, what I look like, where I live, I might be completely unaware of horrible things happening to people who aren't like me. That there might just be a whole world of injustice that I am sheltered and protected from even knowing about. When I say I felt a way about that, I mean I felt a way. It haunted me. It was a loss of innocence that I certainly mourned. It changed the way I think about the world. I could go as far as to say that this observation, which was a true observation of real observable facts, literally shaped my character and informed the sort of citizen that I have become. It created in me a curiosity to understand how other people live. Sadness, grief, and yes, even some guilt and anger can be growth points, are necessary for growth. Understanding facts is important, but understanding how we feel about those facts and learning how other people feel about them, that's where actual learning happens. That's something that good teachers know. And yet today we have lawmakers in Indiana telling folks that if a lesson plan makes a kid feel sad or asks them to reflect on how they feel or speculate on how other people might feel, that lesson plan shouldn't be taught. Good educators know that without context, without critical thought, and without introspection, we might as well just stand in front of a class reading the encyclopedia for all the educational value that might have. The goal here isn't to improve education, it is to erase controversy, to remove material that might make people who are in the majority feel uncomfortable, or make their kids ask difficult questions of them. When I was a senior in Noblesville High School, my two favorite teachers were complete polar opposites politically. One was a conservative state senator, and one was a kind of prototypical hippie. Both were open about their opinions, but taught their subjects well and were fair to students. They promoted critical thinking and the value of debate and introspection and listening. I never felt indoctrinated by either. Most importantly, they were both clearly friends outside the classroom. Like they were buds, they hung out together. That formed my image of what intellectual growth looks like. Still does. Both would have been disgusted and insulted by these ridiculous classroom censorship laws. As a student, I benefited from an environment where all of my diverse teachers showed up as their whole selves. I'm speaking before you as a trans person who knows absolutely, without a doubt, that the existence of trans people is one of the things that is going to make a young person feel something and ask uncomfortable questions of teachers and parents. The absolute intent of the people who want to strip all the context out of our children's education is to make sure that we're included in a list of unmentionables. Education should not be about making lists of unmentionables. If teachers cannot take a position on controversial issues, what are trans teachers to tell a child who asks them, "Are you a boy or a girl?" Will we be fired or fined for taking a position on a controversial issue like our own gender? And how is the child asking that question ever going to have that character building moment where they suddenly realize that people who are like them are not the only people in the world? And what about kids who are trans? Are they to learn that their existence is so dangerous that they cannot be mentioned in a lesson plan? That they must never see themselves in the stories they learn about? That they will be denied the privilege of learning about history-making women of color like Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson because this might make other children uncomfortable? When we tell children that trans people do not belong in the classrooms, do not belong on the team, can't be read about in the library, we are telling those trans children that we don't think their lives are worth living. That being trans is so bad that it is unmentionable as anything other than a cautionary tale. According to current numbers, 41% of trans children will attempt suicide over the course of their life. And we want to continue to tell them that their life isn't worth living? But of course, none of these people care about how trans people feel. And the world they want us to get back to is the world I actually grew up in. When I was told that people like me didn't belong and couldn't be found in my school, my library, and my church. The word immeasurable doesn't even seem fit to describe the harm that did to me and to my siblings who are also trans. It erased whole generations of people from public life. Thing is, this isn't going to be the end of the story. The genie is absolutely out of the bottle. There is no longer any future possible in which trans people aren't part of the discussion, or where we can go back to pretending that racism is just some distant part of the past that we've outgrown now. The question before us today is, what role will public schools play in that new reality? Will our schools be places that fail to serve some children because who they are makes other people uncomfortable? Will our classrooms be sanitized of anything that might cause a parent to write a letter to the editor, even if the kids in that classroom need far more than a reading from the encyclopedia? Because, like it or not, kids are going to learn about these things. Kids have excellent baloney detectors, right? You're all teachers, and I know that that's something that teachers know. They see right through a deception. When they see that their schools only exist to enforce the status quo, don't exist to challenge them to grow, and actively deny the realities they can see right in front of their noses, we're going to lose those kids. Their faith in education itself will be undermined. I see a future where people like me, trans people, belong in schools, in curricula, in lesson plans, in textbooks. I want my kids to know where their mother comes from and how she got here. I want them to know the trans kids in their classes. I want them to have trans teachers. It's possible to do that. That's my dream. But it requires courage. It requires exactly the kind of courage that teachers and librarians and the guardians of the wisdom of our people have always had to stand up to the mob, to insist on representing the best interests of all of the children that we care so deeply about because of what we've chosen to do with our lives. Trans kids can feel like they belong in school, but to begin that, we must first stop telling them that they are controversial. We have to put them in the lesson plan. We have to see them in the textbook. People like them have to be employed at their school. I know we can get there, and I know the effort to censor us out of existence is doomed from the start. I know that because I know teachers. We come from all kinds of places. We have all kinds of experiences, but one thing that unites us all is that we care deeply about the children that have been entrusted to us. I want to thank everyone who came today, and I hope that everybody has an excellent Martin Luther King Day and enjoys dreaming with us.
Thank you, Kit, on behalf of Keep Indiana Learning's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Tactic Team. A big thank you to our viewers for being here to dream with us. Don't forget to join us for the roundtable discussion with all of our morning presenters at 11 a.m. and share these sessions using our event hashtag DreamWithUs, or DreamWith, excuse me. Educators, there is a link in the description of our live stream to share your thoughts about the Dream Summit and receive your PGP certificates for joining us today. Thanks again, Kit.
Thanks, Allie.